It was a cool autumn day in southern Illinois when I found myself walking along the edge of a quiet park, the trees standing tall and bare, casting their shadows over the damp grass. The air had a crispness to it, a reminder that fall was slowly turning into winter. My walk, however, was interrupted by a sight I never could have anticipated: a young German Shepherd puppy, barely 5 months old, standing in the middle of the field. But it wasn't just any puppy. She had a distinct, urgent air about her, as if she had a mission, and her eyes were locked on something. At first, I thought she might have been guarding something. Perhaps she had found something to play with, or maybe she had injured a small animal. As I stepped closer, I saw the reason for her vigilance. Beneath her body, partially hidden by her black fur, was a small bird. A Northern Cardinal. Its tiny body lay in the grass, its wings twisted in an unnatural angle, its feathers ruffled. It was clearly injured, its chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. The puppy was standing guard, her paws set firmly in place, as if she was shielding the bird from the world around her. I stopped in my tracks, unsure of what to do. The puppy didn't move, her eyes never leaving the injured bird. It was then that I noticed the puppy's own injuries. Her fur was caked with mud, and one of her paws was bleeding. I could see that the blood had dried around the cut, forming a crust on her fur. Despite her pain, she didn't show any signs of distress. She wasn't whining or looking for help. No, she was standing resolute, her body acting as a barrier between the world and the bird she was protecting. As I stepped closer, I assumed she might have hurt the bird, perhaps in play. But as I looked into the puppy's dark eyes, I saw no malice, no aggression, only a deep, quiet devotion to the tiny creature beneath her. It was then I realized the truth. She wasn't protecting something she had hurt. She was shielding something fragile, something weaker than herself, something that needed her. The puppy's eyes met mine, full of something I could only describe as pain, but not pain for herself. It was the kind of pain one feels when you love something too much and fear losing it. I took a cautious step forward, trying not to startle the puppy. She didn't make a sound, but I could see her body tense as I moved. Her ears flicked back slightly, but she didn't growl. She just watched me, her dark eyes locked onto mine. I didn't know if she was afraid of me or just resolute in her mission to protect the bird, but either way, she wasn't about to let me near the injured creature she was guarding. I didn't want to scare her, so I paused and knelt down slowly on the grass, making myself as non-threatening as possible. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a granola bar. It wasn't ideal, but it was food. I broke it into small pieces and tossed one a few feet away, hoping the scent would lure her over and show her I meant no harm. But she didn't budge. The granola bar sat untouched in the grass, the pieces softening under the midday sun. The puppy's focus never wavered from the bird. Her body trembled slightly, but she stood firm. Her gaze remained unwavering, her eyes never leaving mine, as though she was silently telling me not to come any closer. I could see how much pain she was in. Her paw was wounded, and she was breathing shallowly, but she didn't back away. She didn't look at her own injury. She didn't care about her own pain. She cared about that bird. I tried again, speaking softly. "Easy, girl, I'm not here to hurt you." My voice was calm, meant to reassure her, but still, she didn't move. The more I watched her, the more I realized something profound. This wasn't just an injured stray. This wasn't just a puppy trying to survive. This was something much deeper. A protector. A being willing to stand between something fragile and the world that could easily destroy it. I knew I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't leave her like that. There was something in her eyes, in the way she stood guard, that stirred something in me. She wasn't looking for help. She was demanding it. She was telling me that if I wanted to help, I needed to earn her trust, and I needed to do it carefully, patiently. Time seemed to stretch on as I sat in the damp grass, watching the puppy and the bird. I wasn't sure what to do, but I couldn't leave. I stayed still, making sure not to make any sudden movements. I just needed to understand her actions. What had happened to this puppy? Why was she so dedicated to this tiny, helpless bird? Was it instinct, or was it something deeper? Something that transcended survival? As I sat there, I began to notice more details. The bird, although still breathing, seemed to be barely hanging on. Its chest rose and fell with each fragile breath, and I could hear the faintest chirp, almost as if it were calling for help. I also noticed the puppy's ear. It was tilted in a strange way, halfway folded down. One of her paws, the one that was injured, shook ever so slightly when she shifted her weight. She was in pain, and yet she didn't show it. She didn't whimper or cry. She didn't take her focus off the bird. She was standing between it and the world, protecting it with everything she had, and in doing so, she was teaching me something about sacrifice, something about loyalty. I reached into my pocket again, and this time, I pulled out a small piece of my sandwich. It wasn't much, but it was food. I tossed it a few feet away from the puppy, hoping she would take it this time. Still, she didn't move. She remained firm, standing over the bird, her eyes locked on me. It was clear that she wasn't interested in anything I had to offer. She wasn't hungry. She wasn't seeking shelter. She wasn't even seeking affection. She was focused on one thing: protecting the bird. She wasn't going to let anything or anyone come between her and the bird. Minutes passed, maybe even an hour, but the puppy didn't move. Her position never changed. She didn't leave the bird. It was as if time had stopped in that small corner of the park. It was just me, the puppy, and the bird. The world continued on around us. Cars passed on the nearby road, the wind rustled through the trees, but in that moment, everything else seemed insignificant. Then, without warning, the puppy lowered her head slowly. Her snout brushed gently against the bird's wing, not in a forceful or demanding way, but in a tender, almost soothing manner. I watched in silence, my heart aching with the realization that she wasn't just protecting the bird, she was comforting it. She wasn't simply guarding it from harm, she was showing it care, offering it warmth and protection, even in her own pain. The moment was so quiet, so intimate, that I couldn't help but feel a deep connection to both the puppy and the bird. I slowly reached into my backpack and pulled out a flannel shirt, not knowing exactly what I was going to do, but feeling the need to do something. I laid the shirt down beside the bird, just a few inches away from the puppy. She didn't flinch or growl. She didn't back away. She watched me closely, but she stayed where she was. Her eyes never left the bird, but something had shifted. She trusted me, at least enough to allow me to help. I moved the bird onto the shirt carefully, wrapping it gently to keep it safe. The puppy didn't growl or bark. She didn't protest. She stood up slowly, her injured paw trembling, and moved a little closer, her body still between me and the bird. I could see the exhaustion in her body, but she was standing tall, unwavering. It wasn't just a puppy anymore. It was a protector, and I had to respect that. I didn't know what to do next, but I couldn't just leave the bird or the puppy behind. I decided to take them both to the vet, hoping they could help. The bird needed medical attention for its broken wing, and the puppy needed care for her injured paw. The vet didn't seem too optimistic about the bird's chances, but we could stabilize it for a while. The puppy, who I had now named Roxy, remained by the bird's side the entire time. She didn't eat. She didn't drink. She simply stayed close, watching over the bird. She was protecting it, just as she had done from the moment I first saw her. As the days passed, the bird slowly began to heal. It was still fragile, but its condition improved. One day, after what felt like an eternity of waiting, the bird finally fluttered its wings and, with a weak chirp, took flight. It wasn't graceful, it still had one broken wing, but it managed to make its way into the trees. Roxy didn't chase the bird. She didn't bark or whine. She just watched it go, her body relaxed but her eyes still focused. She had done her job. In that moment, I realized something. Roxy hadn't just been protecting the bird. She had been protecting me too. Through her actions, she had taught me the meaning of loyalty, of compassion, and of standing by someone, no matter what. She had shown me that healing doesn't always come in grand moments, but in quiet, steady acts of care. I had witnessed something extraordinary that day. The puppy had saved the bird, but in doing so, she had also saved me.